They say secrets are like shadows. They follow you, grow larger, and eventually consume you. But when I first crossed that invisible line, I didn't think about shadows. I didn't think about consequences. I told myself it was harmless, a fleeting indulgence. My husband Liam would never know, or so I thought. Our marriage wasn't perfect. Whose is? But it wasn't broken either. Liam was kind, steady, dependable, the type of man who always kissed me goodnight, even after an argument. But sometimes that steadiness felt suffocating, like I was trapped in a glass box, watching life unfold beyond the walls while I stood still. Enter Adrian. Adrian wasn't like Liam. He was fire and chaos, his words dripping with danger and allure. We met at a work conference, one of those corporate mixers where the air is thick with ambition and poorly disguised flirtation. Adrian was magnetic, his eyes lingering a little too long, his laughter a little too intoxicating. I told myself it was just conversation, harmless fun. But deep down I knew. The way he leaned in, his hand brushing mine, it wasn't innocent. That night I didn't go back to my hotel room alone. The affair was brief. Just a handful of stolen moments, whispers in the dark, and promises we never intended to keep. I told myself it was over, that I could return to Liam and our life as though nothing had happened. And for a while, it worked. I threw myself into our marriage, overcompensating with affection and acts of love. Liam, sweet, unsuspecting Liam, seemed none the wiser. But then came the test, the two faint lines on that plastic stick that changed everything. Pregnant. At first, I was thrilled. Liam and I had talked about starting a family, and this felt like a blessing, a new chapter. But then the timeline started to blur. Dates didn't add up. Panic set in. Was it Liam's or Adrian's? The question haunted me, gnawed at the edges of my sanity. I told Liam the news, and his face lit up with pure joy. He scooped me into his arms, spinning me around like we were characters in a rom-com. For a moment, I let myself believe that everything would be okay, that this baby was his, that I could bury the past and move forward. But secrets have a way of clawing their way to the surface. The first crack appeared at a dinner party. One of Liam's friends, a sharp, observant type, made a comment about the baby's due date. "You two must have conceived right after your anniversary trip, huh?" he said with a wink. My stomach churned. The math was wrong, and I knew it. Liam didn't notice, laughing it off, but I felt the weight of his friend's gaze linger a second too long. The doubts grew louder in my mind. What if the baby wasn't Liam's? Could I live with the lie? Could I live with myself? As my belly grew, so did the tension. Liam was ecstatic, planning nurseries and baby names, while I spiraled deeper into guilt. Every time he touched my stomach, I flinched, afraid he could somehow feel the truth beneath my skin. And then Adrian found out. It was a casual email at first, a congratulations with an undertone I couldn't ignore. Then the messages became more frequent, more intrusive. He hinted that the baby might be his, that he had a right to know. My heart raced every time his name popped up on my phone. I blocked him, but he found ways to reach me. Anonymous numbers, handwritten letters slipped under my office door. He was relentless. The final straw came when Adrian showed up at our house. It was a rainy Thursday evening. Liam was at work late and I was home alone, the soft hum of the TV my only company. When the doorbell rang, I assumed it was a delivery. But when I opened the door, there he was, soaked from the rain, his eyes blazing with determination. "We need to talk," he said, stepping inside before I could stop him. I begged him to leave, to keep quiet, but he wouldn't. He wanted answers, wanted to know if the baby was his. The confrontation was heated, voices echoing off the walls, and then, as if the universe had a cruel sense of timing, Liam walked in. His eyes darted between us, confusion giving way to suspicion. "Who is this?" he asked, his voice dangerously calm. Before I could respond, Adrian spoke. "I'm the man she's been sleeping with." The room spun. Liam's face contorted, disbelief morphing into rage. "Is it true?" he demanded, his voice breaking. I couldn't speak, the words lodged in my throat like shards of glass. Finally, I nodded, tears streaming down my face. The betrayal in Liam's eyes was unbearable. He didn't yell or throw things. He simply walked out, slamming the door behind him. The days that followed were a blur. Liam moved into the guest room, barely speaking to me. Adrian continued to push for a paternity test, threatening to take legal action. I was trapped in a nightmare of my own making. When the test results came back, they confirmed my worst fear. The baby wasn't Liam's. I braced myself for the inevitable, the divorce papers, the end of my marriage, but Liam surprised me. One evening, he sat me down, his face weary but resolved. "I need to know," he said. "Was it just a mistake, or was there more?" "It was a mistake," I whispered. "A terrible, selfish mistake." He nodded, his jaw tight. "I need time, but I don't want to lose everything we've built. I don't want to lose this baby." His words shattered me. Here was a man I had betrayed, yet he was willing to stay, to try, for the sake of a child that wasn't even his. But staying wasn't the same as forgiving. The months that followed were tense, filled with therapy sessions and painful conversations. Liam was distant, a shadow of the man I once knew. I couldn't blame him. Every time he looked at my growing belly, I knew he saw Adrian, saw the betrayal. And then came the labor. The moment the baby was placed in my arms, I was overcome with love and guilt. She was perfect, innocent, but her features were unmistakably Adrian's. Liam noticed too. He didn't say anything, but the look in his eyes said it all. The final confrontation came when Adrian filed for visitation rights. He wanted to be involved, to be a father. Liam was furious, vowing to fight him in court. The battle was ugly, dragging us through a whirlwind of legal proceedings and emotional turmoil. In the end, Adrian was granted limited visitation. Liam was devastated, but he didn't walk away. He stayed, raising a child that wasn't his, because he loved me, because he loved her. Our marriage would never be the same. The trust was gone, replaced by a fragile truce. But Liam's decision to stay spoke volumes about the kind of man he was, a man far better than I deserved. People often ask why Liam stayed, why he didn't leave me after what I did. The truth is, I don't have an answer. Maybe he saw something in me worth saving, or maybe he stayed for her, the child who didn't choose this chaos. All I know is that I'm grateful for his forgiveness, for his strength. Grateful for the chance to rebuild, even on the fractured foundation of our marriage, but the shadows of my choices linger. They always will.